Welcome to the Occult Rejects. This episode, I got a bunch of us. I got a couple of us here, actually. Just a couple of us here tonight with Carl Crusher, returning guest. We've had him on a few times. Guy's always got amazing, crazy stories to tell us, and I'm sure he's got some more wild ones for us tonight. But before we get to him, we're going to introduce Headless Giant. What is going on, my man? How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? I got Beans over here. I got the trialogues coming on tomorrow with Ethan and Ricardo. And then later on, we're going to be talking about the Green Man with Jules. So it's going to be a really interesting day tomorrow. You can find me on YouTube at the Headless Giant podcast and also on X, the Headless Giant. If you have any strange, occult, weird stories, kind of like the ones we're going to be talking about today, send them to the Headless Giant podcast at gmail.com. And if you include your address, Nick will send you out some stickers, and we do those on Thursday. So definitely check that out. Thank you, guys. It's really popping. We got some great stories coming in, so definitely check us out on Thursdays. Thank you so much.
Yes, and this Thursday we might have an interesting guest. So just letting you know. Yeah. And Tyrone, my man, how are you, sir? Please let everybody know what's up with you.
What's up, Headless? What's up, Nick? Hey, Headless, man, you keep forgetting, bro. You got to promote your art, man. You keep forgetting that. Like I promote the books, man. You got to promote your art. You know what I'm saying? So while he's doing that, everything that you want to find about me or learn about me is on my website, rebirthoftheword.com. I love ancient history, mythologies, conspiracies, and all kinds of stuff. I also wrote a book that went bestseller. That's on Journey Through the Origins of History. That's on Amazon. And I know Carl from Twitter Spaces. This man got a lot of respect from me, so I'm very anxious to hear what he has to say. Thank you for letting me be here.
Of course, no, thank you, sir. And I think it's awesome that you knew who he was prior. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And now we got the man himself. We got Carl Crusher. What is going on, sir? For people who don't know who you are yet, because it's been a while since you've been on the show, and I've gotten some new subs and followers. Why don't you let everybody know kind of what you're into and some of your credentials, places you've been?
Yeah, my name is Carl Andresen. Online, I go by Carl Crusher, just because it's easier to spell and everything. But I explore ancient locations, paranormal hotspots, and places where it's known that the government has done a lot of research and psychic research into the UFO and UAP phenomena. So I'm really fascinated with that overlapping layer between the paranormal consciousness and UFOs and aliens or other life. And so I try to throw myself in the middle of that as a filmmaker, go out and make a lot of independent films and documentary projects, and then I upload them all over the place and see how far I can go with it, who I can work with, and what kind of things I can uncover. And so, yeah, I'm trying to explore consciousness and reality and film it all as I go along the way.
Yeah, you're definitely doing a good job at it, sir. So,
Thanks,
yeah, of course. I know recently you've been kind of back at Skinwalker Ranch again, correct?
Yeah, I was just up there. They just had a whole convention up there called Phenomicon, where a ton of people came together. Like the whole Skinwalker Ranch crew was there, and a bunch of them were speaking. Like Whitley Strieber was there. Jay Stratton was there. I got to meet and talk to Jay Stratton from he's the Pentagon guy that was the head of the UAP task force for a while. I think that's what he was. But yeah, just a bunch of people from the field and the UFO world. And then, but mostly I'm researching a new spot that's just north of Skinwalker Ranch. There's a whole property up there called Thunderstrike Ranch. And it's basically like 10 miles north of Skinwalker Ranch. But it's the same exact cows that graze on the property at Skinwalker Ranch. So on the show, when you see the stories about the dead cows that they find, or animal mutilations, or some cow just turns up dead or whatever, it's the exact same herd that are up at Thunderstrike Ranch that actually goes and grazes at Skinwalker Ranch. And so it's the same owners, it's the same cows, it's a lot of the same families and everything. It's just a little bit north across the town, and all the same legends and everything. But yeah, just been going up there, working with some of the people that used to work at Skinwalker Ranch back in the day during Bigelow's era, hanging out with the locals and talking to them and doing real field work. Like there's actually a rash of dead animals going on right now. Like there's a dead cow, a deer, cat, like a whole string of animals that have been found up there, just like that have been found in really disturbing ways, unnatural kind of deaths. And so I've been up there investigating that. And along with that, a lot of, staying up all night to try and look for UFOs because we're right up there in the territory where a lot of that happens. So yeah, just working with all of that. And then recently with some of the guys from Skywatcher, the team that summons UFOs for the government on government contracts and stuff, and does that professionally. So some of them are coming out wanting to be more public. They want to help like starting their own YouTube channels and learning how to do all that. So they've been partnering up with me on the side and kind of going out, coming to some of my spots and doing it with me. So that's been pretty cool. Very validating too.
What is some of the ways that you know of to summon these UFOs?
Yeah, well, there's a combination of methods. Like the Skywatcher team itself, they have developed a system that combines consciousness and like projected telepathy along with technology, and they have a piece of radar equipment they've nicknamed it the dog whistle. And basically it's like a projected radar system that they can point at the sky and modulate the frequencies of the radar. And they can get certain results with that, where they basically can call in these unidentified craft or object to appear over the mountains or come down in the sky. And then the team of psionics, is what they call them, are the people that do telepathy. They use consciousness and they use meditations and different methods of consciousness in order to basically interface with that craft once it appears and then communicate with it. And the theory is, and the idea is that the psionics team is able to use their telepathic abilities to sort of hijack the controls of the craft, since it's piloted by consciousness itself anyways. And you can kind of land the craft or bring it down, and then it's available for study or for capture by these organizations or whatever. So the methods are like the combination of the technology using the radar equipment or the modulated sound frequencies and tones along with the psionics. But part of the reason that the team from Skywatcher is coming out and working with me is because we're on this path to be like, we don't need a dog whistle. We don't need anything. We think that we can be successful with this at the highest level, just using intentions and using the formula that we've developed, which is connecting directly with the ancient methods. And the reason these guys from Skywatcher are coming out to work with me to do psionics is because during these incidents where they've had what you would call a landing, like a craft actually comes down or an object comes down and lands on the ground in front of officials, some of the entities that they've encountered and the things that they've seen are reflected in the ancient petroglyphs and the carvings that I go and study in these ancient sites. So part of the telepathy and the psionics is, how can we find this balance between the environment of where you're at, the technology, and the human element of consciousness, and get the right combination to get the UAP to get closer and closer and get the proof. So that's kind of, what we've been doing. But there's a lot of different nuances. If we wanted to get into like how psionics works, how the telepathy works, and the different methods, and like what you actually do within the mind, I mean, we can go all into that.
Oh yeah, I'm ready there. I'm already a step ahead of you, because I was just thinking, the basic way to, easiest way to explain that is just how, people use frequencies to meditate today, through the 432 hertz and all that other stuff. They use different frequencies to meditate and stuff like that. And then when they meditate, they see these, visions. That's what I'm going to call them, visions. And they're able to do things within those visions and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how I see it with frequencies, when you say the word frequency, at least. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, like psionics and the way that a lot of it works is, if you visualize, some people are not as good as visualizing things in their mind, like having an imagination and being able to hold that imagination, like a vision in your mind, like you just described. But yeah, it kind of works in a similar way, where you're out in an ancient location, you're sitting on the hilltop with your friends there, and then you all kind of get synchronized in the right mindset. And it all starts with your intentions, like your subconscious reasons of why you're even there. You better make sure that those are in check. You better make sure that everybody in the group is like getting along and has a good relationship, like very fundamental things just about your own attitude and stuff. But then when you start to go up through that process of meditation and self-awareness, yeah, then it becomes almost like a holographic overlay in the mind where you're sitting on the hilltop and you're looking up at the sky, but inside your mind, you're also visualizing these holographic connections or this other connection to reality, or like a beam of light going into the sky, or these quantum abilities or connections and things. And yeah, sometimes they appear like a vision, or sometimes they're something that you just control and point in a certain way. And yeah, the idea is you get the group kind of all on the same page, and then suddenly there's a response and there's a reaction to that, almost like just like you would go bird calling and you would get good at getting the birds to come closer and closer. We're kind of doing the same thing through meditation and consciousness when we go out to these sites and do the sky watching.
So, Carl, this kind of begs the question, is this a natural phenomena? Is this manifesting because of the participants, or is there some interaction that creates, kind of a harmonic state or a harmonic resonance that then produces this phenomena? Is it alien at all, or is it native to this earth, so much more native that, we can't even possibly imagine how old it is?
I tend to think that's more like the latter, what you said. I think it's a lot more native. I mean, so much so that it's hard to fathom. I've tried to write a couple of books about it in little small books and do videos about it, but it's very difficult to explain where these things are coming from, because we're everything that we do is based on physics and the laws of physics and looking and experiencing physical reality. And when you start to talk about these non-physical energies, non-physical dimensions and all that, those rules don't necessarily apply when you're talking about consciousness and thought and the mind and the fundamental substrates of the universe. Like when you get beneath the molecules and the atoms and the quarks and the very energetic fabric of reality, what's back in there, and what is there another side, is there another dimension beyond that, or is everything actually manifesting out of that space? Because that emptiness of what we think is a nothing, like the nothingness of empty space, is actually made of pure consciousness and pure potential and pure creativity, and that everything is springing up from that what we think is nothing is actually pure potential. And when you
Carl, do you
connect
know
with
how
that,
depressing that thought is? Because the reason the phenomena changes, according to what Jacques Vallée has said and many others, is because the changes in our consciousness are
to
then
us,
projecting out. So all of the
yeah,
terrifying factors of this phenomena are coming through us. That's
our own
manifesting
subconscious.
through us.
Yeah, so imagine if you're like a security guard at an ancient Native American location and you're walking around at night and there's a magical energy to that place connected to the universe somehow that we don't understand. But when you walk through that area, it's able to take your own subconscious thoughts and your own fears, your own um, self doubts, and it takes those feelings that you have, like your own inner doubts and things and fears, and suddenly forms that into an appearance that you see walking towards you through the trees, and you all of a sudden are looking into this mirror, like directly, that's coming right out of the universe and right out of the darkness. And to you it might completely look like a skinwalker or the boogeyman, or some kind of a ghoul, that you wouldn't have any idea what it is. But really, you're staring into the core fabric of reality, which is actually made of us as the looker, as the observer. And ultimately, you realize everything that's happening in reality comes from the observer effect, and that we're actually the cause of it. And yeah, but we all think that we're in it and we're trying to figure it out, and it's all inside out. Yeah, it's like being in a dream and not realizing that you're in a dream and really believing that everything out there is not made of you, right? When really in a dream, everything is made out of yourself, really. It's
It's
kind of
like
profound.
trying to diffuse. It's trying to diffuse that big comic, bomb, right? But that bomb's actually made out of you, and you created the bomb that's now about to explode in your face. You're
Yeah,
trying to diffuse what's essentially just made out of your stuff. What's
exactly.
interesting what's interesting on that level is the hero's journey, right? So all of these ancient shamanic cultures had this idea of overcoming these obstacles as they presented themselves to you in much horrific ways, and showing how the soul can overcome that through certain virtues and certain practices and all the rest of this stuff. And we sort of leave that behind because we think, oh, that's ancient stuff, they're talking about crazy hallucinations or something. But really, it's the same stuff that we're dealing with today, just shown in a different light, a different perspective, a different subconscious, manifestation.
Yeah, now we're
You
all
know what?
trying to
Hey,
figure it out. Yeah, go ahead, Tyrone.
I was going to say, Headless, I don't think we're trying to figure it out. I think we have more words to explain it today than we did before. Before they didn't really have that many words, and one word meant many different things, and that's why there's so much confusion. I think the figuring part, I think I have to agree with you a little bit on that, because the figuring part is how to use those words in the explanation of what you've seen. So that does make a little. Yeah, I do like that. I do like that.
Yeah, I think what I mean figuring out too is I think that as a society, we've lost touch with it a little bit unnaturally, and it's not even really our fault. I think just as a civilization, we've evolved to now we've got all these cities and high rises and buildings, and we're living and sitting in offices and staring at computers and our phones all day. And that's
Yeah,
just
we
like,
forgot to sacrifice lambs and shit, bro.
yeah, I mean, we're talking about, thousands of years before us where everybody was literally just outside looking at the sky, and connected to this. And it was just their way of life. And so I just feel like we've kind of drifted away from a sense of connection and awareness that is, once you get back out to these sites and start going out into nature and paying attention and meditating, then you immediately reconnect with it. And that's why there's a million different religions around the world, all based off of those experiences where a guy goes up on the mountain alone, sits there for a few days, has a huge epiphany, talks to God, and comes down with this wisdom. And then a whole religion is built off of that. But
Yeah,
there's nothing that says that
100%.
we all can do that. And we just forget that we can get out of the city, go up in the mountains and sit and meditate, and the universe will show up for you. It really will.
See, a lot of people forget that you don't have to sit on your ass to meditate. You can literally go hiking and meditate while you're walking. There's so many different ways to meditate. You just have to find the one that works for you. They have the basic ones and the ones that probably work, the strongest and the best. But then they also have ones where, somebody can't sit down. Somebody might have a back problem or an ass problem or something where they can't sit down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they might have to get up or walk. If they sit in one spot too long, they go to sleep. So if they go on a walk, they can listen to it's what you focus on when you're meditating.
Nature is literal medicine. Going out in the sun helps heal our bodies. So, I mean, thinking of going into nature is actually just reconnecting with that medicine that's free everywhere all the time.
Right.
And do what shaman do. Take off your damn shoes when you're walking through the woods and ground. You know what I mean? That's what you're supposed to do. People put the rubber between the grounding effect. There's when you go do something, you have to go all in. You can't just go half-ass. And that's why a lot of times a lot of people fail those visual quests that they're looking for, because they're going half-ass in it.
Yeah. And there's also something that happens to you just in the act of making the attempt, saying, like, when you make the decision and you get up and you say, I'm going to go out, I'm going to go on the mountain, I'm going to try and connect, or I want to reconnect to nature or whatever. Just even as you start doing that, that process opens up your mind and you begin to see and listen and to feel, and all of that sort of opens up your consciousness like a flower. And the more that you do that and go out and look at the stars, if you take off your shoes or you take meditation bowls or do whatever you like to do, the whole idea is just to get your intentions and your attitude and your mood and the spirit, whatever makes you feel good. Ultimately, like when I was working with the Skywatcher guys, my whole attitude was like, well, what's your secret? Is there a method that you do? Do you do this before that? Do you say this to yourself? Like, what's the whole process? And ultimately, the big secret is you can't overthink it. Like the whole idea is to get up in the mountains, to get around a couple of good people and just like really expect that something's going to show up. And if you have the right intentions and the right group of people around, and you go out with the attitude that it's going to happen, then it does. It actually does. And that's been the case. And the more you try to fiddle with it, like it's some kind of a thing where you can, if I do it this way, or if I tune it up this way or do it that way, it's almost like you get farther and far away from it. Like if you're an athlete and you're trying to get really good at being accurate, like at hitting the target, the more you start getting in your head and trying to think about how to do it, the more you're going to get screwed up and the more you're going to miss. You have to let go and get in a flow state and just realize that this is amazing, and it hits the bullseye. You know, you have to really trust. And so a lot of it comes down to that, is like just being with the right people and going out and just trusting that like this is going to work, you know.
Yeah, that's the most important part, being with the right people. But being with the right people, I like to expand on that, doesn't mean that you have to be around people that like you or you like. Because part of what makes who you are is being around the stuff that you don't like. So that way you can better understand the world around you. If you surround yourself around people that you like and that you agrees with everything that you say and you agree with them, then you just putting yourself in a bad state, because you're never going to get out of that, you know, outside of that box. So, I mean, but you have to also be able to learn how to be able to be cordial with people. You have to be able to understand and talk to individuals. So when you say being around the good people, that doesn't, to me, that just doesn't mean being around people that like me and or anything like that. I have to have me some people around that dislike me, because it will ground you. It's like that. It's the positive and negative effect. You know, you can't have a positive effect without a negative. You know what I'm saying? It's just what it is.
Agreed. I just mean, I'm referencing that as far as like, if we were going to go as a group, it would definitely be a drawback on the experience if one person was there the whole time being like, this is a bunch of bullshit. This isn't going to work. You guys are stupid. You know, like make sure you bring people that are like cool with what you're doing and kind of expect that it's going to happen, you know, like, but yeah, you don't have to like everybody. That's for sure. Yeah.
I came to this conclusion a couple of weeks ago. The fundamental polarity within the entire universe is tension and release.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're all manifesting that same intention, that's where you're getting the tension. And then when it finally gets magnetically attracted to you through that tension, through all that one sort of way of thought, that becomes the release. So you've got to have the goals and the tension lined up in that regards. And you've got kinetic and potential energy. It's all tension and release. So that's part of existing and manifesting that a lot of people are kind of missing out on, is primary polarities.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, Carl, because you brought up a perfect point when I said what I said. You said, you know, the person that's around you that's being negative the whole time. How do you handle people that are negative towards the work that you are doing? Like, how do you? Because I know there was stages to where you was at now. It wasn't, you know, you learned something new upon what somebody had, you know, brought to your attention on a negative type of way. So how did you handle that, and how do you still handle that today?
Well, when it comes to like the group that I take out in the field with me, I make sure that, yeah, like the people that are going, I'm talking to, that they kind of understand what's going on and that they're into the idea, that they actually agree that it works and that it's effective, and that we're going to be successful, you know, so that we all have the same goals. But when somebody's like negative, usually I only get that like online. I've never had anybody have the guts, I guess, to come up to my face and tell me.
Yeah, never in person.
Like,
it's never in person, man. Them keyboard warriors, man. I've been in enough spaces to know that shit.
It's all on Twitter. It's all on X. And my attitude there is I always push back myself. Like if I know better, like if somebody's trying to dig into my friends, or they're trying to belittle what we're doing or say that it's fake or whatever, I try to use like logic and common sense, and I'll push back and hold my ground. And that can look like an argument, but a lot of times, like I was just in one for a couple hours yesterday with a group of people, you know, that were calling my psionic friends grifters, you know, because they were trying to start a Patreon page and thing, take care of their families. And so I kind of stuck up for my friends. I'm like arguing with some of these people, And by the end of it, like everybody's quiet. And I'm kind of like, where did everybody go? So when you finally actually step up and you engage in the discussion, they realize they're just kind of jealous or they're mad about what you're doing, that they didn't get to go, or they're just mad because they want more proof and you haven't brought it yet. So they're being impatient. And it's always never what they're really mad about or what they seem like they're acting mad about. But if they're really obnoxious and they just won't quit, then I kind of treat it like on the internet, my YouTube channel and my pages, I'm trying to culture a certain kind of atmosphere where people feel safe as experiencers. So if people are in there really disrupting that, just like I would my own property, I'll kick them off my property. So I'll block people and not have a problem. If they were at my house or in my front yard yelling at me, I would kick them out of here too. And if they were uh, coming into my chat room when we're all doing a live stream together and somebody's trolling, I don't have any problem blocking those people either. Because, I just want to, it's not that everybody has to like me. I'm fine with criticism. I'm fine with people telling me they want me to do different stuff. But if they're obviously just there trying to throw a wrench in the gears and ruin the vibe, then I'll kick them out.
Yeah, it took me a while to learn how to do that shit, man. Because I used to be in the Twitter spaces with you, bro. I used to go back and forth with people all the time, and I ain't even gonna lie. I used to consider a Jerry Springer, bro, because I felt like social media, like Twitter and Facebook, I don't think people are really serious. Because, like you said, that nobody ever approached you face to face, and that's a whole different vibe. And but the reason why I asked you that is because social media is really the cornerstone of getting information out there, and sometimes you just have to break that idiot. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to break them. Like I mean, it is what it is. I know a lot of times I've been in a lot of spaces with you. I know you shared a lot of stuff, and I hear people talking back and forth, and I've been down that roller coaster and stuff like that. But the thing is that you are asking people to do their own research. That's what I get from you. Like you said, you say you go through the myths, your boots on ground. I always talk about anybody that's boots on ground on anything. You can't tell them anything different. I mean, this person's there. What are you doing? Sitting behind the computer? Yeah. I mean, maybe you have a disability where you can't go out on the field, and that's fine, but you can't judge somebody who's out there doing it. Maybe you should, as an individual, it should touch bases with people like you who are, boots on the ground, filming this stuff. And I also know when it comes to filming, is that you have to cut out a lot of stuff. And then there's a lot of, executive points and people with their own, ideas, and you have investors and all that stuff that you can't really control. So how do you go about doing things with raw information where you're like, hey, I don't want anybody involved but just me, my camera, and myself?
That's mainly how I roll. I mean, I'm almost 99% of the time choose on purpose for that reason to go alone. And choose to take my own equipment, don't borrow anything from anybody, don't use anybody else's gear or cameras. Like I'm always using my night vision, my camera, my stuff so that nobody can be like, oh, this is mine and not yours. Or nobody can I don't have a boss. I don't have anybody telling me what to do or where to go or anything like that. And so I try to go like Ronan or whatever, the lone guy that goes on his own, And so yeah, that's how I get around that. Like if I get into a situation where I'm like, okay, what we're doing here on this project needs to get into a bigger field of view. Like we should try to get this on a TV show, get somebody in here to make a documentary. We need a bigger network to bring in some funding to do a big project here. Then it gets dangerous because you have to cross the red tape. There's no way around it. You've got to sign NDAs. You have to sign contracts. You got to go get into bed with these big networks and stuff who have no idea who you are and they don't care, and they're dealing with people like you, 100 of you a day. And all these lawyers come in and are involved and they don't care about your intentions or what you're trying to do or whether it's real or not. They're just making a show and worried about the liability. That's when it's challenging. And when I face those situations, which I have several times, same thing as the trolls. I dig my feet in every time. And I say every time that they have to put in the contract certain terms, like that they're not allowed to script anything. I'm not going to fake anything. If they want to do reenactments, it has to be literally right after it happened, just because we didn't catch it or there was a mistake. I'm not going to go back and refilm something that happened a year ago. I put all of that, and then I even make them agree that I'm allowed to film with my cameras anything that I want while they're there. And I mean, they hate that every time because it's like I could expose them as a fake or whatever, or for lying or for hoaxing or whatever. But I make them put that in the contract. Otherwise, we don't do the show. And I've been able to do 3 different shows that way so far with 3 different networks now. And so far it goes okay, but they hate it every time because they just want you to sign on the dotted line and have no control over anything. But yeah, you got to
That's
know
so
what you're getting
slimy.
into.
People don't even know that would be a thing, but you've been in the business long enough to where it's like you got to be able to film everything. You never know what they're going to try and pull.
Yeah, well, the whole point is we've been working for 2 years on this spot. We're like this close to like maybe digging open a tunnel entrance to get in where there's a buried UFO, maybe underground. So now this whole team shows up with all the money, with the tractor, with the drill, with the drones, with the equipment. And the last thing you want to have happen is to lose total control over the research and the findings. And you actually film something or make a discovery, and this giant corporation that came in that took over everything now has all the power, and they take all your footage, they have control over the whole story, and then they got you to sign an NDA, and you're screwed. It doesn't matter if you found a UFO or not. You can't say anything, and you're going to jail, like, or you're getting sued for everything. So you have to know that game that you're playing up front, and when you start going down that path, so that you can set everything up, which is why some of the guys from the Skywatcher team are wanting to come out and work with me and do stuff, because they realize now, oh, if you don't have your own YouTube channel, your own Patreon and your own Instagram and all that stuff, and you're not regularly capturing and putting out your own content, then these other corporations and agencies will just come in to your projects and take everything, and you have nothing to say, no evidence to show for your stories or nothing. So if you don't cover your ass on the paperwork side and on the legal side, when you get into teams and organizations or working with contracts, doesn't matter if you find anything or not, you're never going to be able to tell anybody.
Right. And that seems to be the way that they would operate. It's right out in the open, but then as soon as they find something, oh, now we go into a completely different mode.
So that's one of the reasons why certain people really like me, because they want that advantage going in. Like I work at Thunderstrike Ranch because the owners of the property, the guys from the Skywatcher team, and everybody that I work with, we all want that independence, to where we don't have anybody that can tell us no. And if we catch something on footage, like if we actually land a UFO and get the evidence, then we could upload it that night and nobody could stop us. We could upload the footage and the pictures and everything, and nobody could come and seize it. Nobody could tell us we have to wait for a year or any of that. And the reason that we're all pushing in that direction is because a lot of guys inside the program, that's what they're experiencing. As soon as they're successful on a job, the whole thing gets swept under the rug, taken away. They lose their equipment. The boss gets scooped up and promoted. And now the whole team is like left wondering what they're going to do. And they don't have anywhere to go, and they're just left standing there. So like, what do? You got to go land another UFO, and you got to do it on your own terms. So that's where we're at.
That sounds promising. If these are all the same guys that were engaged with the Jake Barber incident, then, I mean, what do you know? I mean, you might have similar results. Is that sort of the direction we're going here? Is another Jake Barber without the, requisite government involvement?
Yeah, exact same thing, exact same protocol. We're saying, how much can we strip out? How much red tape can we remove? How little can we do it with? Can we literally just take 3 guys and some good night vision and go stand on a hilltop in the right spot and do this with nothing else? How minuscule or minimalistic can we do this and bring home the bacon? And so we're doing that. I mean, we went up and did our first test run where me and Mike Batista, he's a U.S. special operations guy. He's a retired Green Beret, but he's the lead psionic for Skywatcher, and he flew out and worked with me up around Skinwalker Ranch for about a week, just a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, we did psionics 3 different nights up there, and we filmed 80 minutes of what I would consider like very good UAP activity and footage where, you know, it's nothing like a giant craft with a bunch of details where you see entities or anything like that, but definitely a lot, like 80 minutes of totally weird UFO behavior in the sky. Lots of it. I mean, more than
Now,
I've ever seen in just one night working
is
with
there
them.
psionic training under any sort of classification, or is this like available to the public if people were interested in looking it up?
That's part of why they're coming out is the two guys that I'm working with on the side are all independently, you know, like trying to write their own psionic field manuals and stuff. Because it's not like when they joined Skywatcher, there was anything already written or like they had any training. They were like selected for their abilities or for their talents that were seen out in the field and recruited. So like they were kind of handpicked and brought into that without any training and just kind of like expected to figure it out. And so now that they've been successful, these psionic guys are all, both of them are writing their psionic field manuals about like the protocol of how they do it step by step, from literally packing your backpack before you leave to what you do when you're there, how you write the field reports and all of that. I've seen
So
rough
they've got
draft.
the -10 and the -20 manuals on the way, because that's
Yeah,
I
I've
know how
seen
to
rough.
read those manuals.
Yeah, I've seen rough drafts of them. Yeah, both of them are writing them, and then they might combine them. And then, I mean, we just formed what we're calling uh, the acronym is UAP, but it's the United Alliance of Psionics. And so we're trying to have like an alliance of people with psionic abilities and find a way to recruit more people with psionic abilities, and then create like uh, not really an online school, but yeah, like a way for people to start to tap into their own abilities and unlock them in that way. It's kind of just like, you know, anybody can do it, right? Like everybody has psionic abilities, but that's kind of like saying, yeah, we can all go tonight and sing karaoke together. But that does not mean that everyone can be a professional singer. That does take years and years of doing it and going out and connecting with the phenomena. So there's definitely like levels to this, even though anybody could go out and do it tonight if you went outside and tried. But I think being able to go out and confidently say, you know, we can bring people from the government and NASA, and I can do this whenever I want. That's the level of people that I'm currently working with and trying to work with.
That's awesome.
Wild shit, dude.
You said something that was interesting. You said the government knows this, right? So why do you think people go around and say that the government is trying to figure it out like we are? Or why do you think the government is trying to hide it?
Well, I think they know that it's going on, but they still have no clue. Like that fundamental question we asked at the beginning, where are they coming from? How do they get here? Like we can't even explain how they're coming right out of the ground, out of nothing. And then they're a solid object that we can go touch or whatever.
Wait, hold up. You said ground?
Yeah, right out of the mountain.
Yeah, see, I'm glad you said that, because that means they're interterrestrial and not extraterrestrial, right?
Yeah.
Which a lot of people know that when we talk about UFOs or orbs or anything like that, there's an association with the Anuna / the Anunnaki. Now, when you actually read the text from the Anuna / Anunnaki, the actual cuneiform tablets themselves, they say they came from the depths of the seas, but their gods resided on the top of the mountains. So that when you say stuff like that, and I hear other people say stuff like that about more interterrestrial versus extraterrestrial, why do you think that there's more thoughts geared towards the extraterrestrial rather than the interterrestrial, when there's more evidence for it being here on planet Earth than anywhere else?
You know, I don't know. I think that a lot of that is due to just like when people actually see it, the phenomena, and they notice it. Generally speaking, it's a light up in the sky or a big phenomena that's floating up in the air, and they maybe didn't see, or they weren't even looking where it came from, and they never got to witness where it went and where it returns to. So when they see it in the sky, or they might see it float up above the clouds or shoot up into space, they assume it must be extraterrestrials from another planet or from outer space, because we don't know what's up there, you know. And the assumption is that we know everything on the earth. We know what's in every cave and every mountain and every canyon. And I can 100% tell you that is not the case. Like, I have personally been hiking back in canyons that you would think that, oh, everybody would know what was up here. And I've found stuff that nobody had a clue was there before. So, I mean, anything is possible. Every single Native American and indigenous culture, their origins talk about not only the star people and how people come down from the stars or from the skies and go up to the heavens, but they all talk about the ant people and the underworld people just as much, like these entities coming up from the underworld. In fact, most of the ancient locations that I go to have a lot of stone ritual circles from indigenous people, where they would put stone circles or pathways or like monolithic stones and things. And that almost ties into these ancient esoteric cultures that believe in like fairies and the fae and like goblins and trolls that will like come up out of fairy rings, like right out of the ground. Like you hear in Irish folklore and stuff about like leprechauns will just come out of a ring of mushrooms and pop out of the ground and run around. And you hear all those stories and they sound crazy, but when you tie all of those ancient myths in and those ancient legends in with actual UAP stories, and especially abduction stories where people claim they've been taken by entities, that overlap is, to me, is very clear. People a lot of times, as much as they are seeing like, and they think they're flying through space on a spaceship, a lot of times find themselves in some kind of a weird environment or an underworld, or they believe that they're down in some kind of a upside down, like a different dimension that's more like in the basement than up in the sky. So it's all there. And I think it's a little bit of both, but I've seen a ton of UAP activity, and we filmed a lot of it when I was with Mike Batista this last trip. And a lot of them were coming right out of the side of the mountain, and then they would hover up, form in formation, and then they would go up into space. Or some of them would fly in and they'd come up towards us, and they would go down into the mountain. It was both. I mean, they were going both ways.
Some of the more interesting sighting stories I've read has been about the little people that look like space people coming from the Alps. So you'll have these reports of people running across, tiny men in silvery uniforms. And then when they take off their helmet or whatever, they look like gnomes or some of these other fairy creatures. And so these are happening in the 1970s and the 80s, and people are, some actually take pictures of these things. And it's so off the wall, people can hardly believe it. But yeah, it's the same sort of little green men phenomena, only in a different context, in a much more alpine region. So,
and again, sorry, I cut you off there. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if go back to that initial thing, if these things are manifesting and they're drawing their form from our expectations or our subconscious, then culturally there could be a huge variety, everything from space alien looking things to like goblins or trolls or werewolf looking stuff. So like, if it's all based off of, and like, imagine if reality, if you could go up an ancient canyon, and back in the back of that canyon was this cosmic 3D printer. And that 3D printer could read your mind, and it could pick something that it knew would inspire you or would frighten you or would show you something that would unlock a part of your consciousness. And as you walk up to that canyon, suddenly reality 3D prints this appearance for you. It could appear as literally anything. It could appear as an object in the sky, as a creature, or whatever. And then as you encounter that, you would have all kinds of random paranormal stories, from the dog man to Mothman to aliens to ghouls or whatever. It would really be based on your own DNA and where you're at, and the energy of the place would create a whole formula that for whatever could appear. And then when you see that, how you interpret that would totally depend on your own beliefs and your own way of seeing it and encountering it. So Yeah, it's either going to
Right.
appear and you're going to think it's a spaceship, or you're going to think this is some kind of a strange thing that just came out of the underworld. It just
There's a
depends on what.
biome specific element to these sightings. When you take away the borders of, well, this is real and this isn't, and you're looking at, well, this is strange and this isn't, then you start to see these patterns emerging that come along with these, energy ley lines and all these other things that influence the manifestation itself.
Exactly. So imagine like ancient cultures were naturally sort of in tune with that. And a lot of their beliefs and customs and rituals were tied up into that. And now we're looking back in history wondering, why did they build all these pyramids? Why did they build all these stone monoliths and rings and labyrinths all over the world? And what were they doing here? And we don't have a clue, but all you have to do is go out and experience it and sit in those places for a little bit and be quiet, and you'll realize what they're all about and what they were doing, because you'll tap into those frequencies that are harnessed in those places. And if you're sensitive at all, you'll realize what they were doing there, and you'll see the same things and experience it.
Isn't it like wild when you think now? Like, I mean, I think I believed it when I was a kid. Going back to a kid, like we thought, oh yeah, the pyramids are just to throw a couple of dead bodies in them. Like you had to go through all that just to toss a couple of fucking mummies in there. Really? Like, and I remember like believing that.
Yeah, they say that those were just a tomb. Like they built the whole pyramid.
Oh, sure, it makes sense.
Just to put the body of the king in there. And now we look at all these and people are puzzling over it. Like these are giant energy capacitors or transmitters. Like they're drawing power from the ether of the universe and channeling it out to the community and things. And everybody's trying to figure out what they are. But all of it's going to go back to relating to consciousness and how consciousness is the fundamental constructor and observer of reality. And so they were tapping into consciousness and reality itself and how those two things interface.
I have a little saying that I always bring up is land is the lens by which we view God. And when you think about it in terms of the phenomena and everything else, it's like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. This is how I perceive myself through the land around me. And so our perception of that is going to then influence our perception of God. So it sort of shapes it. And you think about rural environments where you've got all the verses that they use in the preachers on Sunday mornings about sowing and reaping, and that ends up shaping your reality, and all the rest of this stuff sort of comes into focus as well. So there's a intense connection to the land that we have, whether we explore it or not, and that ends up shaping our reality around us.
Yeah, I agree. It was obvious that in ancient times there was something going on that everyone all across the world, across the globe, knew was important and was the most important thing. And they were all trying to tap into that and all trying to harness it. It doesn't matter like what country you go to, they have monuments or pyramids or different structures that ancient cultures at one time appear to be trying to point towards the summer solstice and the equinoxes, and they've got these vast connections in the way they're aligned. When you actually go study it, you realize there was like a phase of really early primitive humanity that was not primitive at all, but they were tapped into this stuff like at a way higher level than we get, and they were doing it totally organic with like the earth and stone itself, and now we're doing it very synthetic. Like I believe that what they were doing like in Giza or down like in the Aztec Empire, the way they were laying out those temples and tapping into the aquifers and the way the Schumann resonance of the earth, they were basically trying to build giant computers, that you could go sit inside that would resonate with your consciousness and tap you into the internet of the universe. And that's kind of what it's like. You go sit in these ancient spots, you find a shaman seat and you sit there and you learn how to meditate with it. And it really is like surfing the astral plane, like you would the internet. You can tap in with consciousness and read the Akashic library of these ancient times in certain ways, or at least have these visions and impressions and downloads of knowledge that I think these ancient cultures would find absolutely invaluable. Like to have a shaman sit there and to gain wisdom about what to do and where to go would be a matter of life and death back then. And it would be absolutely important. Now we just call it our intuition,
Merkaba meditation goes straight into the idea of these chariots of the gods. Chariots of the gods is right back into the UFO phenomenon. So it's all right back with the same terminology, even. And I think very few appreciate that.
And the Merkaba, a lot of that stuff goes back to the different fundamentals of the Kabbalah system or the tree of life. And then you're talking again about the chakras of the body that go up through, and those are all a prototype for you. And so when you start to study those systems and those methods of how the universe works in these esoteric teachings, you realize you're reading about yourself. And these are all things that are supposed to align and tune you in to experience the phenomena, or to talk to God, or whatever, to commune with the source of creation, that fabric.
Yeah, it's the chakras. That's a lot of people are familiar with just 7 chakras, but there are literally some people say hundreds of chakras throughout the body that you can control. So that's actually interesting that you brought that up. The lights, like when you was talking about the lights and orbs and all that other stuff, it was interesting because of the fact of what we know about chakras being different colors. Are those orbs people that were able to manifest and do things that might not be human like and more like God like. So yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of talk. We've had a couple of discussions about Bigfoot and Dogman and so on and so forth. And a lot of the ancient texts talk about that stuff. I give an example. I've been talking about it since we've been talking about Bigfoot, is that Enkidu from the Sumerians is also known as an animal-like man. His depiction of him is very different, but the idea is that he's not full human. He's part animal and part human. And then eventually he was persuaded by a prostitute to become more human-like, and he came to the city and became Gilgamesh's best friend. But the point is that he's been described as what some people would say is as a Bigfoot. So these ancient texts talk about this stuff. Ezekiel's wheel, a lot of people would talk about that and relate that to the UFO phenomena. But he's seen this in a vision. He didn't see this with his 2 eyes, where you open your eyes and you look at it and you see it flying. He's seen it on top of a mountain while he was in a visualized state. No different than Jacob when he seen the 72 angels coming from heaven, from the ladder. Remember, he was in a visualized state too. And that's why I like to use the word vision or visualize or something like that, because in the simple fact that that's what they talk about. They was meditating. They was trying to, and a lot of times, not only when they were meditating, you also got to remember they were fasting at that time too. So when you take food and water away from you and you start controlling it to the bare minimum necessity of your body to survive, you can become in a hallucinated type of state. You can start seeing things. I know from personal things where when I was in the military, when you was on guard 36, 40 some hours, 50, 60 hours, you start seeing fucking pink elephants and shit like that because you're up all goddamn day.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? So I know I could just, and that's just a couple of days, bro. You know what I'm saying? They was pushing 40. So, you know what I'm saying? I could just imagine what the hell I was seeing, you know what I'm saying? If I had to do something like meditate for 40 days and lack of food and water and shit like that.
You better see some shit.
You know what I'm saying?
You'd be wrong if you didn't.
Yeah, you did something wrong if you didn't at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, and they say in those visions a lot of the times, those guys, the prophets in the Bible, they're like in the middle of describing this whole experience with God, and right in the middle they slip in, whether in the body or out of the body, I know not. They don't know.
That's
if
actually one of my
favorite.
favorite. That's one of my favorite scriptures. I have a lot of them, but you're right. It does says whether in the body or out the body, I do not know. That's exactly what it says. Yeah, I know that.
Wow. And if you go out and do psionics, that's exactly what it's like when it works. You're like, yeah, you're sitting there and you know that you're there, but a part of you is caught up in a different place and a different experience and sees things. And then when that comes back and appears to you in the canyon or as a ball of light and returns right when you're thinking about it, you start to understand what all these ancient mystical people were doing, and what they were
Yeah, they were
actually up to.
starving their bodies, man. They were starving themselves. They're starving themselves mentally, physically, and with everything. They were starving themselves, and that's what pushed them to that mental state where they could see things that we couldn't. But see, this is where astral projection also come to play. You don't have to. You could be resting, trying to get rest and get better, and still do these type of godlike abilities traveling outside the body and stuff like that. Because when you're in a much relaxed state of mind, or you're in the witching hour, I guess they call that, you can astral project, and you can do things that you wouldn't be able to do when you're in the physical form. And they say that this is important because that this is where some people were able to come up with some of the technology that we have today. Some of the people had their prophecies explained through those ways. They got to, quote unquote, and I'm gonna say it, Nick, see the future. That type of shit, it's crazy. People don't want to believe it. You know what I'm saying? And I was talking to Nick about this earlier, that I have, like, I have this thing about me where I can feel that something's going to happen. And I wish I can control it to see exactly how it's going to play out. But I always have a feeling that something's happened. And there's different people around the world that have these things. My mom is a medium. She talks to, she tell me that she can talk to people who passed away and stuff like that. So there are people out there like this. Psychics are able to find people who were murdered that never even had any information about them at that time period. The police department hire them. They'll come out to their police department, get a couple of facts from the individuals, and boom, within a couple of days, couple of hours, they know exactly where this body's at. And this is up on the part where we're able to use our inner abilities of God-like abilities. The problem is that we don't seek to know how to do it. Jesus walked on water. That could mean so many different things, right? The point is the fact that when we take our abilities and we start following what, and I hate to say it because some people don't like the Bible, but if you listen to what Christ said, look within yourself, you are able to accomplish things that people would think will be demonic, magical, mystical type stuff, witchcraft. And it's really not that. You're looking within yourself to bring out the best of you and the best around your world, because the universe revolves around you. You just have to make that universe the best way you can. And a lot of people fail to do that because they don't look within themselves.
Yeah, exactly. All of the miracles and the scriptures and everything are acts of faith. They're things that happened that were completely paranormal, that occurred, that multiple people witnessed because one person had a belief that was so strong, they knew it was real, they acted on intention, they took a chance in that moment or whatever, and in that moment the universe responded and actually delivered the goods. And then that throughout time, those are carried as miracles, like walking on water or parting the Red Sea or pillar of light from the sky or the finger of God writing on the stone. And I'm just saying that people can say whatever they want, but like these things are fundamentally built into the universe for us to explore and to be curious about. And they're all throughout the history of the scriptures. And there's a lot of people right now that think that doing telepathy or psionics or remote viewing and all that is some kind of an evil thing, like it's occult or witchcraft, or going to get you into demonic entities and stuff. But like when you start even trying to deal with your own problems in your own mind doing meditation, you could call that like, oh, I'm dealing with demonic forces. When I started trying to deal with my own depression or deal with my own self-hatred and different things, I might as well have been wrestling with demons. And that's the same shit, it's the same thing. But when it comes to doing psionics and this kind of work with the phenomena, it's also the same thing. It's like, how much are we going to fear ourselves as we explore reality? Because the universe is going to push back in what you're taking to the table. So like if you go out there, like all of my experiences when I've gone out, even with these professional guys, to do psionics and to do it, even though we flat out call it summoning, and we're out there working in areas where there's dead animals and creepy stuff, and you would think on the surface like this is a haunted house. We're out here working in the woods. But every time we go out, because of the vibe that we carry with us and our intentions, our results have always been positive and have been amazing. We found that the attitude that you bring as a team or as an individual is going to give you the results that are tuned to you. If you're going out there and you're all worried and afraid, like, well, what if we see something? the odds of you manifesting and actually encountering something that's going to traumatize you go up and up. You know, you're going to
So,
get
Carl,
what you're looking for.
let me get this straight. You guys aren't praying for the end of the world, and you're not expecting to see demons?
No.
No?
No, we're realizing that whole belief that the end of the world is coming is a self-fulfilling prophecy of manifestation that we have to let
Right.
go of as a society and realize that's all us just impending our own doom on ourselves. It's crazy to even imagine that, really. When you realize how manifestation works, like to hold the belief that the world can only be saved by ending, it really is apocalyptic to believe that about yourself, I think.
Right.
Every beginning begins with the chaos.
That's true. Yeah. That's true.
How the Zodiac
Yeah.
started with the explosion of Aries.
Yeah, I'm personally not afraid all that much of it. And I feel like all the spiritual leaders and even the Bible and stuff, like if you want to go back to the Bible and when Christ went out and did his 40-day fast, when the most powerful evil force ever came up to him and tried to tempt him, I mean, Jesus was like, "Who are you? You have nothing to offer me." And it's the
Right.
same deal today, same deal. So, I mean, a demon is only as powerful of a demon as you decide to pay attention to them and give them credit. Like that's all
As
it
the
is.
offer,
Yeah.
offer he's willing to give you, right? You don't have to.
I'm
take
glad
it.
you said that because Plato in Cratylus, in his book Cratylus, he says that Socrates and them they have this, they're having this dialogue, or that they have this dialogue in there, and they say demons are individuals who are wise men or men who died honorably, right?
Mhm.
Now it's interesting you say it like that way, because that demon, if you let that demon have more knowledge than you, then that demon can control you. But if you have more knowledge than that demon, then that demon can't control you. Who are you? I know more than you. You can't tell me shit type attitude, right? And this is when you look at the exorcism. What does the priest usually do when he walks in there? He starts spitting out facts. You are evil. You are no good. You're hurting this person. And that person don't like them facts. And that's when the knowledge becomes better than what that demon has, because they literally say in that book that demons, in the Greek time at least, that demons are wise men or men who died honorably.
Well, rebirth.
Now we gotta fight that knowledge. Go ahead, bro.
Tyrone. So in Greek, they had three forms of demon that they identified. So daimones is just basically the generalized spirit. And then you had eudaimones, like EU in front of it, which would mean good spirits. And then they had keikodaimones, which would be the evil spirits. So in that paradigm, when they're just talking about spirits, they're talking about like their ancestors walking amongst them and still spreading their knowledge in these houses of wisdom. And that was a different sort of perspective than what came later, because the idea that you would have ghosts walking around was almost seen as unclean from that sort of perspective in the world. But, you know, in the European world, it's like, yeah, our ancestors walk with us and we don't, you know, shun their presence.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm saying is that it's so interesting, because the words that we use are very, very important. I said that earlier, you know, we have to be careful on the words that we use, because if you don't use the word that it means for the original time frame, then you won't understand what that person is saying. That's why, like, for me, I like to know that demons are evil, and I also like to know that they're intelligent. Now, my problem with this is, what intelligent knowledge did they give us that made us evil? Well, then I have to go back and think about what we have today. Well, we have weapons that can kill people. Metal can kill people, but metal can also create life by agricultural needs, right? So the idea of evil, what did we do with the knowledge to benefit ourselves? And we went either, you know, the evil way with it, creating weapons of mass destruction, and then we created tractors to be able to do mass production of food for the people on this earth. So, you know, evil, good and evil, you know, it's all subjective. But the point is that, yeah, what's up, bro?
Tyrone, you're going to love this. So how did daimones get translated into the Latin as the word genius? So
that's what I'm saying.
Genius loci, the intelligences of everything. And that goes perfectly with what you're saying. So it's like the intelligence is this factor that sort of manifests its own thing, like the egregores and all the rest of these spiritual concepts end up manifesting into reality through the genius.
Yeah,
The egregore concept is how that's all connected. When people want to know where UFOs are coming from and why they look the way they do and why they have the shape they do and why the entities that come out of them or what they see coming out of portals or whatever. Yeah, that whole concept of the connection between the egregore and the observer effect and the consciousness of the group. I mean, to me, that's the fundamental secret, and why you asked that question earlier. Why doesn't the government just come out and tell us what's going on if they know? How do you tell everybody that? I mean, that's a secret that you almost don't want to get out, because as soon as everybody realized, oh wait, reality is created off of our own intentions. Like, it's built like a dream as we lean into the future. Like, we're building this out of our own minds and our own hearts, you know. It's a
Magic works best when the people you're doing the magic on don't know they're participating.
don't know. Yeah. You want to be the only one, the only wizard in the top of the castle controlling the whole matrix, if that's the case.
It's
You don't
that
want
simple.
anybody. Last thing you want is a million people walking around with a crystal ball in their own hands. You want to be the only one with the crystal ball that can see the future. Like, so when they bring up disclosure, the reason they're afraid to talk about the implications of all that, because all the rest of this comes out of that bag too. Like the whole unraveling of their control over education and medicine and just reality itself literally comes unraveled.
Which
Right?
is so ironic that the entire symbol of this is like Star Trek, aliens, and this progressive future, but we're kind of stuck on Earth. And so our only vision of the future are these alien crafts that we manifested into reality.
It's really like
that direction.
it's a psychic controlled system, right? It's a closed system, a psychic closed system. Like yeah, we're in like a holographic reality that is in the universe, in the nothing as its server. You know, it doesn't have a container, and so we're just in this infinite capacity of creation, and we're not, you know, we can go anywhere we want through the universe, but we're never leaving. Yeah, this is it. We're in it. Yeah, which is, it's, you know, crazy to think about. Like, of all the things the universe could be doing, it's pretty wild that this is what's up. This is what's going on, and we have no idea, and we're trying to figure it out.
Just to think that the idea is that all the species around the universe thinks that Earth is important, and that's why they come here. That's another thing, right? Like, why is this so important? Why do we have a middle Earth? Why do we have an inner Earth? Why do we have extraterrestrials? Why do we have interterrestrials? Why do we have paranormal activities with ghosts, demons, and, you know, all these other things? Why is Earth so full of this stuff? And if Earth this small has all this, and the universe is supposed to be so big, then what the hell else are we missing out on? You know what I mean?
I know. Yeah, there's something going on with all of that, where as much as we think we've got it nailed down and figured out, and we're measuring time and tracking everything, like, all of that is ultimately really relative, and we don't really know what's making it go and like how it's going. It really all is just unfathomable. It's like, you just kind of have to sit back and realize it's amazing. You know, wow, this is amazing. And when you get into that mindset, you know, that's where that key of a lot of my work is, and what the people I work with is, yeah, getting into that feeling of, wow, this is amazing. Like, any day that we go out, anything could happen. Anything amazing could happen. So you can wake up in the morning and say, have this spirit within you that's like, the universe can literally do anything. Its potential is infinite, and it's listening to me. And so let's see how awesome today can go. And if you have that attitude, then that same idea that the universe is responding to you and will react to you and manifest in that way, that's what we should be doing, instead of this whole, like, when is the world going to end and who's going to come and save us or whatever. If we lean into that, it will lead us into this golden age where we suddenly start connecting at this higher level through telepathy and intuition and consciousness, through our feelings, our ability to connect with each other and see each other as the same, and all you know, having those same connections through consciousness. And then the way that we'll see the world change and the fabric of reality and how that all uplifts, then we'll understand what all those ancient people were doing, you know, 10,000 years ago, and why they were building pyramids. Suddenly, that, I think that will all make sense as soon as we can reach that level.
Yeah, the hard thing is going in the mountains 40 days and meditating and fasting. Once we can establish that, then everything else will come in and answers.
That's it, man. That's what I'm trying to do. That's why I'm like such a I'm into this. Like I'm totally obsessed with it. I don't go 40 days and I definitely don't fast. I just barely today ended a 48-hour fast, but not a 40-day fast. I just ate my first meal right before getting on here, but because my power's
You
been
know,
out all day. But yeah, you got to get into it. You got to like go into your own self, trying to refine your own life and your own mind and your own consciousness. I mean, I've gotten into this process to the point where I'm like very even particular about my diet, how much sugar I eat,
mhm.
um, whether I'm exercising or not. I mean, there's a lot of things that I feel like if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm just not as good at this. I'm not effective, and I'm not going to be an effective part of the team when we go out and work. So, like in my own private life, even when I'm not out doing the psionic stuff and making videos about it, it's a lot of work. I'm doing constantly meditating and trying to keep myself in the right mindset, and keeping my life on track for that and everything that I'm doing. It's if you have like a regular full-time job and you're not trying to do it full time like I am, takes a lot.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, that's and I'm glad you brought that up because I think one of my strengths is that because I am retired, I'm able to read and research and share what I've learned. I try to give back to the people who actually truly want to know things. Like if there's something about ancient history that somebody likes to know, and I read about it, I like to give them as much information that I can about it. There's not, I always say this, there's not enough time in the day for us to do everything that we want. You have to pick and choose. One of my favorite authors is an historian is Godfrey Higgins. He wrote these books in 1833 called Anacalypsis Volume 1 and 2. He was a 33rd degree Mason. He has these books, these very thick ass books. And the other guy that I like was Albert Pike. I'm probably sure you heard about him.
Mhm.
And I read their stuff so much, and they talk about the stuff that you're talking about. Everything that I read, from consciousness to sometimes of some type of entity or uh, something that's not known to us that we can see with our human eyes, but we can see with our third eye and stuff like that. And it's interesting that we have a lot of information out there, and that it takes a lot of people to research it. But then I think about the people who don't have the ability to do the type of research and stuff that we have. And I give you a good example of this is the people that live in North Korea. Like they have no choice but to just be told whatever it is they have. And I wonder, how does the meditation work there? Because they have people who've been there for thousands and thousands of years. And I'm pretty sure they have people with their own myths and stuff. And I try to look for some of this stuff online, and it's very, vague and very, not really any too much information out there. And I wonder, because of that, and the way that history is going, some of the history is being taken away, some of the history is being hidden, some of the history is even being destroyed even till to this day, right, in 2025, which is crazy. But when you think about the people in North Korea who who don't have these abilities, they're being robbed of their basic human journey, their human journey. They're being robbed. And if there is these individuals who can control that, gods or entities or whatever it is out there, then they have to be as strong as the people that's doing good. And what I mean by that is nobody's fucking with Korea right now. Like nobody's fucking with Korea right now. Right. Like as much as the technology that we have from all the, the allies that America has, ain't nobody fucking with Korea right now. And it just makes me think,
call out Israel too recently.
yeah,
I think
yeah, they have,
said like,
yeah, they have,
he should be arrested.
yeah, it is crazy because I wonder, the good that's happening, do we really consider it good because we have luxuries that other people don't have, or is it the propaganda that's telling us through the news that hey, Korea is this way, and that's the fucked up way we're going to go with them? Not only that, but you also have to think about the same thing with Cuba. Like how you remember how Cuba was not forbidden for us to go there, but to learn about and shit like that because of the relationship with Russia and so on and so forth like that. It's crazy to know that we could be robbed of our history, but in our day of in the free country that we're in today, but people are robbed across the world with just the basic shit of what they can do. Just think about that Korean that sees something in the sky that they ain't never seen before because the electricity is always out at this time, and you know it's dark outside. They ain't got shit else, and they ain't never really seen anything. But then they see this glowing light over their land. I just want to know the type of stories they have over there. You know what I'm saying? The skinwalker ranches they have over there, the orb stories they have, the UFO stories they have. Because they're in some cases they're still living in not archaic times, but they don't have electricity all the time like we do. Shit, you know what I mean? So it's just interesting, and they eat a lot of fish too. And then anybody that knows anything about fish brain food, so you know that can exaggerate a lot of the shit. So
Yeah, man, you never know. I think it's fascinating how the ancient cultures that are like cut off from the modern society seem to hold all the secrets, you know. And as modern civilization colonizers move in and like take over different areas, they basically smother that under the rug, and they say, well, this is primitive. Look at these savages. We need to modernize this and develop culture and civilize these people. And then they just trounce right over the ancient teachings and the spiritual places and build cities on top of them. Yeah, it's crazy how that happens all the time.
Yo, what's up, Troubles? You jumped in a little late. Just want to introduce Troubles Garcia. What's going on, Troubles? Why don't you let everybody know who you are? I don't even know.
Yo, guys. What's up, guys? Nice meeting you guys. Headless Giant, nice to see you again, brother. I've been following you guys on the Occult Rejects on you guys' lives. And when you guys were talking about the tweakers, first of all, I want to thank the Lord for allowing me to be here today. And I want to thank every single one of you for allowing me to enter your space. Thank you guys for what you guys are doing today, because it is really, really good work and good research. Also, I left off watching, I left the chat when you guys were talking about the tweakers and the intent and manifesting where you're tweaked out. Guys, I am a recovering addict. You guys freaking triggered me. And I'm going to tell you something. It is insane how accurate you guys are, because I come from a place where I used to get high, bro, and I used to, and this is just my experience, bro. Used to get tweaked out of my freaking in my closet, and I would think that I was grabbing my wife's liver with my hand until it rotted, and my wife would wake up with pain. And you guys are like, bro, you're tweaked out. Like, yeah, I was fucking tweaked out, but I was damaging her with my intention, bro. Like, I was dreaming of it. You can't go to sleep. I was daydreaming about it, bro. And it was happening to her on a physical level. Like, I was grabbing it from the ether and putting it in her freaking body. And I decided to stop, obviously, because I have children and everything, bro. But I have a year and almost 6 months not tweaking more and not smoking weed and not drinking alcohol anymore, guys. And I'm going to tell you something. It's probably the best thing I've ever done. It's not about me. It's about the idea, though, that everything that you do here and you are tapping into a frequency, you could definitely materialize it. And that's where I left off. I'm sorry if I'm pivoting or changing the conversation, but yeah, man, it's an intense realm. Telepathy is another main thing. My ex and I, now I'm a vivid lucid dreamer. Nothing to do with it. But look, check this out. With my ex and I, she, after I did my fourth coming of a man in the Mascalera Apache tribe, we did some celebrations for sweat lodges for fourth coming of a man celebration. And after I did my 3 sessions, her and I developed some type of telepathy conversation, bro. Like, she would look at me across the hallway, bro, and like give me a nudge, and she'd be like, you heard me? And we'll start laughing out of nowhere, bro, because we had a connection. She was my twin flame. I still love this woman very, very much. Obviously, she has her own family, and I do too. And we're happy where we're at. But everything happened energetically. It wasn't like we were fucking and having sex with each other, bro. Like, we were touching each other's soul. I know it sounds fucking retarded, and it sounds like something a tweaker would say, bro, or a spiritual guru would say, but we had telepathy, and we would have full-on conversations for more than 10 minutes, bro, in our dreams. We would see each other in our dreams, and then the next day we would remember, like, bro, did you dream the same thing I did? Tripping the freak out, bro. It's insane. So, yeah, man, tapped into that. Not anymore, but in the past, yeah, bro. Sorry if I interrupted and pivoted the conversation something.
I like that, because, if he was here, he's really good. He had wrote some books on meditation and stuff. And one thing that I've learned about meditation, not just from his book, but overall and throughout my life, is that breathing can help you with that stuff too. You know what I'm saying? It's just, we all have our own ailments, you know what I'm saying? We all have our own vices. It was good that you've seen yours and you worked around it. That's why you went on your journey and you're here to tell us about it. But see, think about the people who weren't able to put those in words for us to understand as of today, in the thousands of years ago. You know, you trying to explain this thousands and thousands of years ago. You know, it brings in the perspective that we are now able to, you know, communicate with each other, to understand each other. And everybody has their own journey and footsteps to go down. And that's what the wonderful part about it is, that when Carl Crusher was saying earlier that, you know, a lot of these myths and these theories and stuff come because of everybody's individual experience. You know, your God is not the same God as my God. I could be praying for something totally different than what you're praying for. And your God can bless you for what you have, and the other God can bless me for what I have. Right. It's not and that's where it comes into manifesting. When you was talking about manifesting, I was actually talking about materializing a couple of shows ago about how there's in the Bible itself, it talks a lot about materializing. You know, they was there one minute and gone the next, you know, and, you know, it's the way they look within themselves that they were able to achieve these, you know, these, I guess you could say, abilities. And you know, it makes me think about, sometimes, you know, when you watch some of these superhero movies and shows and stuff like that, when they were young kids, they were trying to control their godlike abilities to fit in with the crowd. And I think that's what we're all doing, is that we have abilities that we can do. We're just trying to fit in with the crowd because we don't want to be looked at as weird, even though we still say as grown men and women as of today, you know, what's up?
I think I got a through road, right? So what happens when you're, you know, tweaked out on drugs versus when you're, I don't know, 40 days fasting in the desert? You've got pressure on the skull in different areas, right? You've got a lot of swelling. You've got a lot of different areas activating within the brain, and different, you know, connections happening. Again, like the hallucinations are a similar event, but there's something deforming the shape of the brain in these cases that then creates these effects that, you know, we see manifestations and all sorts of other stuff happening because things are not working normally. So it's almost like it's pushing different parts of the consciousness out of proportion in the brain. Now, I think maybe there is some sort of a connection to having, you know, damaging effects in association with, you know, uncontrolled PK or some of these other things. But this is why harmony is so important in the process of achieving these things. We see a lot of people with brain damage having weird effects, you know, occurring in and around these different lobes of the brain. I've heard about the central cortex, how the central cortex used to be active in, you know, primitive humans. It's no longer active in us, but when people get certain brain damage, it activates that and also activates a lot of telekinetic ability. So they might actually be working on ways to activate the central cortex, you know, basically opening us to the phenomena almost at will. So who knows?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, if you
go
ahead.
No, go ahead, bro.
I was just going to say, yeah, if you think about how simple it is that you can alter your state of consciousness just taking like a Benadryl, you know, or anything even over the counter pills, you can alter your state of consciousness taking just like a small little tablet or something. But then you think of different drugs or psychedelics, and then you expand that into different radiations, different frequencies, or other technologies that understand consciousness and telepathy. And then all of a sudden you're getting into this weird, almost DARPA technology where you have, you know, controlling people's thoughts and experiences at a distance, where if the phenomena is at all technological when it manifests or materializes, and if it's based on consciousness, then its ability to tap into consciousness or control consciousness the same way that we would fly a drone or a remote control car. Yeah, you're right. I mean, some of the dangerous side effects of doing this kind of work, and that things that we're concerned about, is that idea of there's missing time that occurs, where people lose 3-4 hours of time and have no memory of where it happened, and you wonder, was that time actually taken, or did we just have like an erase of memory happen, or there's something is happening to consciousness where there's a segment of time just gone, you know? And then there's also effects like they call interference syndrome. And that's actually even come up in the congressional hearings where UAP and experiencers, people that have been in government programs that have been very close to these craft or these objects on the ground and interacted with them, sometimes have got a form of brain damage that is like Havana syndrome. So there is a part of their brain that is affected by these encounters that changes the structure of the brain. And they don't know if it's like damaging or if it's actually enhancing. And it's a little bit, depending on the people, there's reports of both. Like you said, some people have these encounters and then all of a sudden they have these extra abilities, or they're smarter, or they can suddenly do math like crazy or know other languages. And then other times they have these encounters and it's damaging, and they just have their hair all falls out and their gums all turn white, and it's like they've been hit with radiation, and it's not very pleasant. But those are all risks that we're taking when we go out and do this in the field for real, and why I carry radiation sensors and Geiger counters and EMF detectors and all that stuff on me everywhere I go to make sure and monitor that. But yeah, there's definitely real world side effects getting close to raw supernatural phenomena. Yeah.
Well, think about how close radiation is to some of the primary sort of drivers of creation in the universe. Atoms and radioactive decay is just pieces of atoms being shot off into different pieces of space. So if you're thinking about white holes and black holes, there's something sort of manifesting in that space between spaces. This brings us to portals. What are your thoughts on portals? Are there people experiencing that sort of phenomenon to other places?
Yeah, I think as much as like things can materialize or appear like out of the ground or out of thin air, like they're coming from outer space, that also the environment and reality itself can shift or connect to itself in different ways. I think the connection to the understanding of how portals work, both physically and through consciousness, is also a big reason why I think ancient cultures were doing what they're doing. A lot of times where there's all these pyramids and ancient sites that were sacred, there's a lot of false doorways, staircases that go to nowhere, chairs that you sit in and stare off into nothing. I mean, there's a lot of things that look like, why in the world? These are totally counterintuitive. But when you understand that these places are drivers or like pilot seats for consciousness, then you understand that higher level of how people were probably tapping into these locations. But I can't remember what the original point was or what that original question was. But
Portals.
try to remind me. What did you just say?
Portals.
Portals, yes. But yeah, the portals. So imagine these false doorways built in the stone and the wall of the temple in these perfect spots that are all designed to harness this power. And then you go sit there and do the psionic exercise, the shamanistic exercise, where you're overlapping your consciousness into the astral plane while you're sitting there in that actual location. And you look at the doorway, and then you project your consciousness through that doorway. And even though it's not a real doorway in the rock, your consciousness absolutely goes through a type of portal or a gateway. And you may go through a doorway in Peru and suddenly find yourself gaining wisdom from somewhere totally alien or somewhere totally foreign, or maybe feel like you're getting insight or wisdom from the teachers over in the ancient Indus Valley in Tibet. And so maybe they were sitting in these spots through these portal energetic doorways, and not only traveling, but communicating like an ancient telepathy or ancient telephone. So like you have different people in different places communicating with each other, and that's why you've got globally all these structures are built the same and the same kind of culture all over the place. But yeah, I think portals are very real. I don't think they're necessarily like a window that would just like open up into reality that you go walk through. I think they're more just like you might experience it like a strange missing time or deja vu or weird incident when you're in these locations. But a lot of times there's measurable effects. You can catch it on a device or a sensor, or other people in the team experience it at the same time. I've even been in experiences where things have just appeared and now they're on the ground and they were not there before, like where we've hiked down a trail several times and then we went by there the very next time and there's just like a pair of boots sitting there that were not there before, like all kinds of things, like time is overlapping. So I think portals are mostly just the past and the future getting messy and slipping into each other, and people and consciousness can kind of go through that or get in the middle.
Carl, isn't it interesting that people who have these experiences with maybe cryptids or some of these other terrifying creatures that, you know, are somewhat real and somewhat not, they always have an overwhelming sense of dread before running into the creature. It's almost like that emotional response was a prerequisite for the manifestation of this being.
I would say that their dread is the primer and the actual factor that caused the appearance to go that way. That if they would have been able to pay attention to that sensation and control that sensation more from fear into excitement, their experience probably would have not been the boogeyman, but would have been something more profound. It might have been their great grandfathers, ghosts of an ancient shaman, or some kind
Let
of a
me ask you
higher
this, Paul.
intelligence. Yeah.
There's a supposedly a nerve cluster on the back of our necks that, when activated, creates a sense that somebody's watching us, right? And so we have that sort of reaction to that nerve cluster. Do you think maybe stimulating certain nerve clusters on the human body to then produce these type of manifestations is possible using maybe electromagnetic means, kind of like you can shoot this out of a person, maybe?
I think so, but what you're tapping into now is the big core of the secret of what they were doing at the Montauk Project and why that gets such a bad rap, because they started realizing, well, asking that same question, how can we take a person and amplify them and tune them up to make them optimized, you know? And they would say, well, okay, well, and one of the primary guys that started that research was a guy named Andrea Puharich. And he used to go down to the Amazon rainforest and he was studying the shaman, studying magic mushrooms and all of that. And then he was coming back up to his labs and experimenting with patients. And he started out with magic mushrooms, but then he realized, oh, when they're doing the psilocybin, we can flash these strobe lights in their eyes, and suddenly their ability to guess what the cue cards are goes way up. They can tell it's a triangle, they can tell it's a square, their telepathy goes up. And they say, well, what if we add audio to that with the light flashes? And they said, wow, it changes it again. There's a different result. And then what if we put a red filter over the eyes? And pretty soon you're going down this path where ultimately at Montauk, they've got an island like Epstein Island or whatever. And they've got kids that they're doing experiments on little kids where they're pumping frequencies into their brains and they're trying to use radio signals and frequencies to amplify their consciousness. I mean, the whole TV show Stranger Things is based off of that. You know, can you tap into the back of the brain or the base of the skull and tune into alternate dimensions or talk to aliens or whatever? And that's the whole Montauk Project was about that. And a lot of people swear that they were totally successful. So with that whole Project Montauk and MK Ultra, all of that now has rolled forward, and it's what we call became ARPANET, which is now what we call the internet. You know, how do you transfer information through the nothingness, through the mind, through telepathy? That all came out. Jacques Vallée was on the original team that developed ARPANET, the first internet. You know, and he's all into remote viewing and consciousness and all this stuff. But then ARPANET became free and became the internet. And the
Wait, was he a
private part of
Scientologist too?
Hal Puthoff was.
Yeah.
Hal
There's a
Puthoff
bunch
was
of them who were.
bunch of them are Scientologists. Jacques Vallée actually was hanging out with the Satanic Church a lot and doing stuff with them. Yeah. But ultimately they, you know, like MK Ultra and DARPA, like DARPA today, they're all about like, how can you human and technology interface. Can you put wires and microchips into people's brains to control things and control computers? And can you control people with frequencies? And that's 100% what you were just asking. Can you take someone with psionic abilities and amplify them into becoming like totally like what is that, Minority Report, that movie with Tom Cruise where they have these psychic people that can predict future crimes and they can go arrest people before they commit the crime because the psychics can see the future. Yeah, they were trying to figure all that stuff out. Yeah, during the Cold War. And so, yeah, trying to use technology to amplify the brain, it can be a very dangerous path where you're getting into mind control stuff at that point.
Oh yeah.
It's messy. Yeah, but I think it's part of it. Yeah, you can. I think you can use music or different meditations, and there's subtle ways that you can enhance your experience when you go out to do psionics. But if you really start to get Frankenstein with it, you're going to get into
Well, I just keep waiting for Ricardo to pop in talking about the megalithic structures that use these very principles so that they can transfer information over thousands of miles without any wires or anything, just using acoustics and all the rest of this advanced mathematics when it comes to vibration. It's like they figured it out. Maybe that's what we're seeing today. Just another manifestation.
Sometimes I think, though, if you have that technology, wouldn't you just tap in directly into the ether instead of talking to each other? Because all the information's up there anyway. When you gotta
what do? We have the vastness of the internet, and all we do is sit and watch reels and memes and sit and talk to each other too. I mean, we could be studying philosophy and getting degrees in Harvard University, and we're all just geeking out over UFOs tonight. I mean, we all are just trying to have fun too, right?
Yeah.
We want to learn, but it's got to be fun.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was just saying that earlier, when we're taught as young children, or at least when I was taught as a kid, when I went to school, I was always told that school wasn't meant to be fun. And I think that's bullshit, because as a kid, life is supposed to be fun, right? That's all we know is to have fun. So if you can implement a way to educate me in a fun way, it probably, we probably have more educated people walking around here instead of these dimwits, because a lot of people would be able to know what they're really being educated on. And I say that because of the simple fact that when you look at some of the stuff that goes around, when I asked you earlier about, how do you go about with some of the people that at you negatively, you give people sources, you give people information, you give people the opportunity to go do this stuff for themselves. And instead of them going to go do it, as soon as they hear something you don't like, they dismiss it and say, this is bullshit and this, that, and the third. And you're just like, well, why are you here? If everything that I'm telling you is bullshit, then why are you here listening in the first place? And that's when the trolls come in and all this, that, third. And I understand when you say you don't have time for that. And, and it just bothers me sometimes that people are like this, because I'm just like, man, you could probably be doing some really cool shit if you just stop being an asshole.
Yeah, and most of those people, if you actually sat in the same room with them, you'd probably become friends if you just talked. But because they're on the internet,
Hey, bro, that's how I met Nick. Me and Nick met at Cosmic Summit. And hopefully one of these days I'll be able to meet Headless. You know what I'm saying? It's different when you meet people in person versus then when on the computer screen. You got these keyboard warriors out here, everybody talking shit. Oh, let's meet up, blah, blah, blah. Man, y'all ain't going to do nothing but sit there and type away on that goddamn keyboard. You break that keyboard faster than you'll break somebody's face. So just leave it as it is. You know what I'm saying?
It's true.
Well, I think these ancient magicians that knew how to use this sort of principle actually came together and formed a government. And the government always says that they're on a war footing and they're doing the most they possibly can, but really they don't have to do that much. We're doing it to ourselves all the time. And if we just stop doing it to ourselves, they wouldn't have any power. And that's basically the most efficient way they could think of doing it is by getting us convinced that if we didn't get together and maybe stop things or boycott it once or twice, we might actually get something done.
If you put a governor in charge of the city, they're expected to get a bunch of stuff done. But if you put a governor on an engine, what does a governor do? It stops. It caps off how fast the motor can even run. It literally is a speed limiter.
Yep.
So yeah, government is all about governing. It's about capping off our abilities, controlling anything that gets out of control, checks and balances. If anybody starts to get ahead as an outlier, you got to put them back with the rest. Literally, like if anybody starts to develop nukes or any weapons or abilities, we got to bomb them and stop. And like literally everything is about suppression. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's just a matter of time if people take that opportunity to do it. You know, it always leads with an opportunity. If you don't seize that opportunity, nothing comes from anything else. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have that opportunity. And right now, people are so distracted with their own mindset that they don't see the bigger picture. And that's why we're in the situations we are in now with everything. You know what I'm saying? Even when there's actual evidence and facts given to you. I mean, I understand that not everybody can meditate. You know what I'm saying? Me, I have a brain injury. I was growing up in Afghanistan, and I have a traumatic brain injury. I had to learn how to meditate. I had to quiet the noise in my head. Like that's not easy, especially when you got, you know, all these crazy thoughts in your head from when you was over there overseas and shit. So, you know, a lot of people don't understand, you know, everybody has their trials and tribulations, but I hate when people dismiss when somebody's trying to educate somebody. You know, all anybody really, if somebody's trying to educate you, just take that knowledge and roll with it. That's it. If you don't like it, if it don't do nothing for you, forget it. But I guarantee you sometime in the future, you're definitely gonna, if you live long enough, hopefully that information that somebody gives you, you know, will be beneficial. One of the things that my father taught me growing up was, and I kind of tweaked it a little bit, but this is what he told me. He says, a man learns from another man's mistake, but a real man will learn from somebody else's mistake, right? A man will learn from his own mistake, but a real man will learn from somebody else's mistake. So basically how I thought about that, and I kind of tweaked it, is that when I see somebody else doing some dumb shit and it gets them into some trouble, I try to pay attention to that, whether it is, having bad information, misinformation, being guided through the wrong rabbit holes, I guess you can say. You know, I try to stay away from that because they already showed me that if I go down that rabbit hole, I'm going to be ignorant because I'm taken away from the knowledge that's actually out there. And that's really hard to do because you can't really determine what is right and wrong until you actually do your own research. But that's where it comes into where you do your own due diligence. And when you go deep into your own due diligence, after a while, you start seeing the repeating patterns that people say that they think is accurate, but it's actual just fiction and throws everything off. But it takes that repetitiveness to see that. And once you start grasping that, then you won't, it's a lot easier to, mingle through the world and stuff like that, especially when you're going looking for esoteric and exoteric type information.
Yeah, you can have one or two reactions, like after listening to this whole conversation. If you're out there listening to this, you can sit here and say, these guys are full of shit. This guy, Carl, is just talking about how he goes out with these special forces guys, these Green Beret dudes, and they use telepathy to summon UFOs. What an idiot. And then you go back to eating your plate of nachos and you don't think anything of it. You just assume that we're all lying to you. Or you can do what I did like 5 years ago and go, I'm going to go out and see if I can do this. I'm actually going to go out and go back in the canyon and I'm going to be sincere. I'm not going to tell anybody where I'm going. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to actually try. And the first couple of times that I did that, I realized that I was going to be involved in this the rest of my life because, that's the whole thing. You can sit and doubt it all you want. You can criticize it all you want. You can even sit and try to figure it out and puzzle over it all you want, reading books and mysteries and studying ancient history. Nothing is going to replace what happens to you if you actually just find a spot that you can go out and kind of be alone under the stars and just sit there and quiet your mind. And when you really do that and connect and give it a try, you'll realize how magical the universe really is. Like it will respond to you and it will react to you. You might sit there and think that you're bored for a little while, but as the night goes on and as you continue to go back and continue to do it, you'll realize what this is all about and why people in ancient times that weren't all distracted it was their entire way of life and civilization. Like you said, like they almost had a global society where everybody was into it. It seemed like there was a time where it was like that.
Yeah, I like to say, listen to the rhythm of nature. That's how you get involved. That's how you're not bored. When you can listen to the rhythm of nature, that go in tune with your body, because everybody has different rhythm, you'll start to notice that it'll be easier. You'll hear the birds twerk. You know, how often do you think that birds are fucking singing at night? A lot. A lot. Go outside and hear them birds screaming at night. Them motherfuckers got vampire or what they call it what is it sleep problems like we do. You know what I'm saying? They be out there squeaking and talking and shit. Like I'm like, damn, there's a lot of birds out here, you know, singing. And it's interesting because you hear the birds. You know, everybody says the birds are supposed to be sleeping and everything's supposed to be quiet down and this, that, and the third. But you have all these species out there, from humans to bug-like species to anything that's up at night just doing things. So it just makes you think, what are we the only ones that meditate at night, or is it these other species that's out there doing wolves howling at the moon? I mean, come on, they speak into a quote unquote, deity type, like, because the moon is considered a god in some cultures, right? So the wolf is howling at the moon. And then you got the Norse mythologies about the wolves chasing the moon, you know what I'm saying? So it's just all this stuff plays a very part, because you have to look up at the sky to understand that. And when the wolves are chasing the moon, that's stars can be just chasing their whatever, you know what I'm saying, however you want to take it. But the part is just getting that knowledge. And I think that's where a lot of the problems is, that once you get that knowledge, a lot of times, even for myself, I do it sometimes too, I feel like I know everything, but I know everything that I know from what I've read. I don't know everything overall. And that's where all of us have to connect to each other, have these conversations. Like I said earlier, whether you like somebody or not, if you truly want knowledge, you're going to find a way to work with that person. You know what I'm saying? If you truly feel like they have enough knowledge to give you, and then you can be reciprocated for what you have and all this other stuff. But the problem is that everybody wants to be right. Everybody wants to be known. Everybody wants to have a channel. Everybody wants to make some money. And there's no money in this shit. There is really no money in this shit. You spend more money out of your own pocket trying to give the information to the people rather than what's coming in. And then when you finally start getting sponsors, that's when everybody said, like the word that you use, people grifting. No, nobody's grifting, man. Some people have to take care of their families. Some people have to take care of themselves, let alone, not just their families. And not only that, they're doing it for you. You don't have to contribute to it. If you don't have to bash them and say they're a grifter. If they're giving you information and you want to prove them wrong, go ahead and do it. We all have the capabilities to do it. 99.9%, well, I'm gonna say at least 89% of the people in the world have cell phones. Anybody can record some shit and prove you wrong. The problem is that everybody just talk. They want to get on them keyboards and start hitting them, the keyboard real quick. So I really appreciate what you do. I really do. I like what you do. I like the show. I like your channel. Like I said, I've been following you for years, since at least the COVID time when we was in the X Spaces. So you have a great knowledge. You have a lot of fans. I mean, everybody's sitting here saying Carl Crusher is the man in the comments. So you know what I'm saying? So forget all those other people that give you that negativity, bro. There's a lot of people who like what your work is, and I'm one of them. I'm sure everybody in this room right now is one of them.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's very flattering, kind. Appreciate everybody in the comments too, being all nice to me. It makes me feel at home here. I like it.
All that equipment Tyrone saw me use is because of Carl. He actually inspired me to grab my own equipment and go out and use it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you were like, I gotta go do this for real. What should I get?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, remember that? I was asking you shit. Yeah, you were telling me this is what I got. I was like, all right, cool. But
yeah, go ahead.
Is there anything else that because it's almost like 2 hours now? Not that I want to stop, but I mean, is there anything else you guys want to talk about, or maybe we'll wrap it up soon?
This is a great episode. I think that was a
wild shit.
Natural spot,
And I actually got to talk to Carl the Crusher, and got to see him on the digital side. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, I've been on here with these spaces for him for since COVID, man. I be in the spaces list. So I'm pretty sure he heard me spaz out a couple of times. I'm pretty sure he has.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Around COVID, everybody was spazzing. So yeah. But Carl, why don't you let everybody know where they can find all your amazing stuff again? One more time, please.
Yeah, I go by Carl Crusher everywhere on the internet. Almost everything I post goes first onto Patreon and then onto YouTube and then everywhere else, Instagram, Rumble, TikTok, all over. I post clips of everything. I've also on Patreon, I've got workshops, ebooks, master classes, actual books that I've written, video workshops, and then I've just published a book on Amazon. kind of going through, we've talked a lot about religion and how all the different ancient esoteric systems and cultures, we're looking at the same thing. That's what my book is all about. It's kind of like goes through all the religions and looks at the fundamental connection between them all and consciousness. So yeah, that's what I've been doing, kind of trying to get my knowledge out in all different types of media and format. But yeah, go find me on Carl Crusher, and we're right in the middle of all the filming and uploading the episodes where I'm out with the psionic team at Thunderstrike Ranch. So
Wow, that's awesome.
just right now getting ready to finish episode like 5 or 6, and there's probably going to be close to 10 or 11 episodes in that whole series by the time we're done. So
Oh,
it's gonna be a
wow.
good one. Yeah, it's cool.
Nice. Awesome, man. Yeah. So people keep an eye out for that for sure. You know what? And if the people never heard of him before, go back. It's older. It's a little old. Go check out his Magic Mesa episodes. I know that's old, but to me, that's still
going. In fact, by the end of this series with Mike Batista from the Skywatcher team, we went to Magic Mesa. I sat him on the shaman seat there. And yeah, we filmed like 40 minutes of UAP activity coming and going from the Native American reservation there. So yeah, thank you.
a lot of
Magic
you there. Yeah. Even just with the stuff that looks like just shit dripping down the side of it. I was just like, yo, that is weird. So yeah, definitely go check out that footage. It's a little old, but impressive stuff. Thank you again, Carl. I really appreciate you coming on. Headless, why don't you let everybody know what's up with you real quick, sir?
So I have a couple of prints that I have for sale. So this one right here, I like it. If you want it, you just email me at headlessgiantpodcast@gmail.com. We're going $20. If you've got your preferred method of payment, I can send those to you. So headlessgiantpodcast@gmail.com. And if you have any stories, you can hit me up there as well. So thank you very much. Oh, also, they're going to be at the events that Nick is going to be going to pretty soon.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, real quick, if you guys want to check us out, me and Tyrone will be over in Franklin, North Carolina, October 4th, and October 18th, we'll be in Fort Myers, Florida. We'll be at events. The information is already in the show notes now. So, if you guys want to check out that stuff, check it out. Yeah. And Tyrone, my man, sir, what's going on?
Hey, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, Nick, for letting me be here, man. And Carl, I appreciate your knowledge and wisdom that you gave us today. You got a lot of wisdom on your beard. You know what I'm saying? I see the grays, so I appreciate that. It was a wonderful episode, just like Headless said. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Nick got some over. He actually got his on the side, like he got some wings or some shit. You know what I'm saying? But great episode, great knowledge. Thank you so much. Everything that you can find on me is on my website, rebirthoftheword.com. I am going to buy a painting from Headless one of these days. I just need to find the one that actually, is towards me, you know what I'm saying? So I'm looking for that, Headless. So keep up the good work. Don't stop that. Everything you can find on me, like it says on my website, rebirthoftheword.com. And I also wrote a bestseller, Journey Through the Origins of History. And I appreciate it once again. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. And yeah, shout out to Shara. Unfortunately, she was going to make it, but things came up. I saw her. She was in the chat, but yeah, she couldn't make it. But thank you all again. I really appreciate it. And yo, the chat was on fire tonight. You guys were awesome. I mean, again, this is why I go live, because I really do enjoy. Sometimes I do get caught up in the chat actually a little bit more than I should, but I do enjoy it. I like seeing what everybody's got to say and seeing everybody enjoy the show. That's what's up. I appreciate it. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.